Peace and good morning to you. For everybody that's here right now, uh, here live with us at Facebook Live, and those who may be watching on YouTube Live. Like always, I want to say thank you and appreciate you. So today is Friday. It's the end of the week, and we're blessed mutually. I'm blessed to be here. You're blessed to be here and able to be seen and able to be um, alive and well. So I thank you for being alive, just like I'm thankful for life itself. So I just thank you for being here like always. So we're going to start in gratitude. We're always going to start in peace, and we're going to end in peace the same way. So thank you always. All right. So like always, we give thanks to on Fridays, we close it out. We give thanks to our podcast listeners, those that's in different space, especially in the international water. So I'm going to give shout outs to all of where is it? All right, here it go. So for everybody that's listening, so for everybody in the United States, thank you. India, thank you. South Africa, they're listening. Thank you. Germany's listening. Thank you. Italy's listening. Thank you. Oh man, why'd I do that? All right, hold on. I don't click. You ever click stuff? You're like, man, I didn't mean to do all that. All right. So again, United States, thank you. India is listening. Thank you. South Africa is listening. Thank you. Germany is listening. I appreciate you. Italy, Nigeria, Puerto Rico is listening. United Kingdom is listening. Kenya is still listening. Canada is listening. South Korea is listening. Indonesia, Singapore is listening. France is listening. Pakistan is listening. Russia is listening. United Arab is listening. Netherlands, Australia, Algeria, Saudi Arabia, that's a new one. They're listening. Morocco is listening. Mexico is listening. New Zealand is listening. Ireland, we appreciate you listening. Turkey is listening. Slovenia is listening. Namibia is listening. Dominican Republic is listening. Austria is listening. U.S. Virgin Islands, they're listening. Thailand, that's a new one. They're listening. Ethiopia, we thank you for listening. Malaysia is a new one. They're listening. Belgium is listening. And the Philippines, they're listening as well. So we appreciate you for listening. For all our podcast listeners, Apple Podcast is listening. They're the most, like 42% of my listeners come from Apple Podcasts. So if you got Apple Podcasts, go ahead and check out Consistency is Currency on that distribution system. Spotify is at 21%. Web browser, that means they're listening on their computers. And Google Podcasts, they're listening as well. And from a gender perspective, there's more men that listening. So shout out to my brothers out there. 73% are male, 27% are females. They're listening. The age group, they're young. So I like that. So from 23 to 27, 60% of my listeners. 28 to 34 is 33% of my listeners. And from 45 to 59 is 7%. So again, we thank you and appreciate you for listening. So as always, thanks. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into it. What we're going to be talking about, what's in your garden. What I want to do today, I'm going to get on my phone and I am going to, normally I don't get on my phone, especially during live, but I'm going to do it today. So I'm going to take this live and I'm going to share this live and I'm going to put it, and let's go with 2 Facebook groups, right? Consistency is currency podcast. All right, yeah, I'm gonna do that today. Can we do that, please? Yeah, we can. All right, so we're gonna take that, we're gonna share it, and we're gonna put it into a whole nother, man, Facebook is tripping. All right, so we're gonna take it and we're gonna drop it and put it into a whole nother space. just to expand the brand just a little bit. Can we do that? Just a little bit while we at it. I know you see the light on my face, but it's okay. I'm just switching profiles just a little bit. And give it just a little bit of attention. Consistency is there. It go. All right, so we're gonna share it now, and I want you to share it too. So take this live as you're watching it and go ahead and share it. I'm gonna drop it right now into a Facebook group, and when we drop it into the Facebook group, peace. Good morning, Miss Myrick. We're talking about garden today. We've been talking about that garden for a long time. You know, personally between you and I. So that's going to be interesting. How much the garden has grown, especially for you, seeing how much your garden has grown. This sounds tripping, but it's okay. Let's go ahead and jump into it. All right. So, what's in your garden? It's definitely advanced from the first time we talked about it between you and I. Our gardens have grown considerably. I think we were. I know I was I think I was in my late 20s, maybe, or early 30s, and I know you was in your 30s. But we're going to talk about garden. Like, what's in your garden? And that's a true and honest statement when you're talking about your garden. And I'm going to give you definitions, like always. Normally, I would give you some etymology, but we're not going that far back with the etymology. But we're talking about in your garden. We're talking about the place that you are and the mindset that you find yourself in when you're talking about garden. So let's go ahead and jump 2 feet deep into garden. All right, so the definition of garden. Yes, I got the definition of garden. Trust and believe the definition is resonating when it comes to your own personal garden. So the definition of garden said a small piece of ground used to grow vegetables, fruit, herbs, and flowers. The inversion, before we get into it, go ahead and take this live and share it. Put it on your news feed or put it into a Facebook group. Again, the definition is a small piece of ground used to grow vegetables, fruit, herbs, or flowers. The inversion that I want you to pay attention to is white over red. A small piece of ground used to grow. That's you. Like a small piece of ground used to grow. Like, we're not doing this to tear ourselves down. We're not doing this to eliminate ourselves. But what we do in our garden is there for us to grow. We have put ourselves in a place in this small piece of ground used to grow, or a small piece. Like, my piece is important for me to grow. So again, we're going with definition, and the inversion is a small piece of ground used to grow. Like, when you have peace, like spiritual peace or emotional peace, that's grounds for you to grow. Like, I flipped that. When you have just a small piece of peace in your life, that gives you grounds to grow. Again, I'm just giving you definition as you can see it here, but just putting it in the context that we can understand as relevant to today as possible. A small piece of ground used to grow. So a small piece of peace is grounds for you to grow. And the second definition of garden, it says a plot of land used for the cultivation of flowers, vegetables, herbs, and fruit. So the inversion on this is red over white. It is a plot of land used for cultivation. Again, a plot of land used for cultivation. So now what I'm going to do is extract the word cultivation out of this definition, and then we're going to show you how cultivation is important to your garden. Now, when I'm talking about your garden, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about your emotional state. I'm talking about your personal state. I'm talking about your spiritual state. I'm talking about your life and the things that you do that's in your garden. And again, this definition is talking about a plot of land. The inversion is a plot of land used for cultivation, like the things that you've plot in your life. Has it begun to grow yet? That's a question that's proposed to you. The things that you've plotted in your life that you want to come to pass in your future, or you want it to come to pass like right now, have it begin the process of growing it? Have it reached the harvest? Because remember, in the previous definition, it said a small piece of peace gives you grounds to grow. So that small seed that you've planted and you've plotted on, that you've prayed for, that you've desired, have you begin to cultivate that in your land, which is cultivate that in within yourself, within your thoughts, within your mind. So let's talk cultivation. The definition of cultivation, it says prepare or use for crops or gardening. That's like, is your soil prepared for your seed? That's deep. I might have to write that down. That might have to be a whole nother subject. Is your soil prepared for your seed? Because it's saying prepare and use for crops and gardening. Cultivation is ensuring that the things that you desire for yourself, you cultivate it, you prepare it. So like a student that goes to school, they're cultivating themselves by studying, they're cultivating themselves by taking notes, they're cultivating themselves by reading, they're cultivating themselves by study groups. So have you cultivated what you want to experience in order for you to experience, or to extract from the experience to seeing who that you want to be? And the second definition of cultivation is apply oneself to improving or developing. So have you applied yourself? The inversion is white over red, apply to improving or developing. See, a lot of us have gardens that we haven't cultivated. Now, we want these things to happen, or we want this type of fruit to grow, or we want this type of tree, or we want this type of flower, but it's not going to happen until you cultivate it. Have you cultivated your ground? Have you cultivated the way that you've processed your thoughts? Have you cultivated your own improvement? Have you developed and designed how you want it to be? It's like having a garden and you begin to design how you want it to look. Like you have this garden over this side of the garden, you have it in a box, and you may want to have a over here you have different flower pots and stuff like that. Like a gardener is going to map out how they want their the harvest they want to look like. That's like you walk and you say, okay, over here we have the greens, over here we have some beets, over here we have some watermelon, whatever it is. That gardener designs how they want the harvest to be, because they have developed it, and they have applied improvement when those things that are in the garden that's not supposed to be, they seek improvement in order for the harvest to be bountiful. And this definition, I was like, wow, I've never looked at a garden from this perspective. So in this definition, it says a garden. Now I want you to pay attention. It says a garden, the single feature identifying even in the wildest wild garden is control. I think that's probably why when gardeners garden, that's when they feel at the most that's when they feel at peace the most, because they can control how they feel. Like, I'm going to go in my getaway. When I'm in my garden, I don't think about nothing else. I feel at peace. This is saying the single feature identifying even the wildest wild garden is control. You control how you manage your expectations, because again, remember, fear is not a thought. Fear is a response to your thoughts. So you control how you allow either fear, how you deal with the response of fear, or how you deal with the thought and how you respond to the thought. And then the second line, it says the garden can incorporate both natural and artificial material. So let's talk about the natural and the artificial material in your garden. I'm planting strawberries. That's natural. You put it into the garden. I'm planting beets. That's natural because you planted seed, that you've cultivated the ground to plant the seed, and the harvest comes the beet. I'm planting uh um greens over here, so that's natural because I planted the greens in the garden. But what are the artificial materials? The artificial materials in your garden are the things that you don't plant, but they find themselves in your garden, suffocating everything that you naturally planted in your gardens. So now you begin to lose control in your garden. So what's in your garden? Like, what's really in your garden? Now I want you to look at it from this perspective. Like, this is where it really gets deep. All right, Facebook user said, I'm still working on my garden. See, the thing about working on your garden, I'm going to put that up. Like, I don't know who it is because it says Facebook user. So this Facebook user said, I'm still working on my garden. But the things that you have to look at in this statement that's most important is, I'm still working. A lot of times the harvest won't take place because that person who was working on the garden stopped working. And when we get in a deep dive, you're going to touch on that. Queenie, you hit that on the head. That's definitely in the deep dive too. So let's go ahead and take this deep dive. When we dive this deep, you're going to understand where we come from. Because now the best things in life takes time. From our preparation, from our development, and even our harvest. All of that takes time. And do you know what time it is in your garden? Do you know what time it is in your life? Do you know what time it is in your season? Do you know what time it is with your fruits? Do you know what time it is with your flowers? Do you know what time it is with your vegetables? Because all of them grow in due season. Like, you can tell a tree by the fruit that it bears, but you won't identify that you have yet to cultivate fruit in your harvest, but you want fruit. That's like a lot of the generation right now, in this generation right now, they want the reward, but they don't want to do the work. Now, granted, it's not all of them, and some of it is our generation too. But a lot of times they want the reward, but they don't want to do the work. You want the fruit and you want to show everybody what the fruit bears, but you don't want to plant the seed and wait in due time for the harvest. But you want everybody to see you walking around and think you're in that place, but you're not. Your garden is just as toe up as for. but you want people to see like your garden is good. But yeah, you got your red bottoms. It's only red because you've been stepping on your dreams for a long time. You've been stepping on the reality that you're suffering for a long time. You've been stepping on your goals for a long time, that you've killed the vision. That's why it's red, because you killed the vision. You stopped working on your garden. The vegetables have choked itself out because you've tried to pull it out of the ground before it became in due season. Because you wanted the life of boom. You wanted the microwavable life. You wanted the microwavable garden. But the timing of your harvest isn't up to you. It's up to the due season. It's not you. It's the season. So some of our concerns is in our work. Like, what are we doing when we're in the garden? Like, what we're trying to think when we're looking at our garden, and we get so frustrated. Like, how come I haven't got this yet? You're worrying about the wrong thing. You haven't even cultivated. You haven't even put in the work in your garden, but you're ready for the harvest. That's not how it works. There is a gestational period that is going to take place, even whether you're ready for it or not. I think a lot of times, like even us, like as adults, uh, maybe it took 30 years for that harvest to take place. Maybe it took 40 years for that to take place. But you still have to keep cultivating it. Like, it may took you 40 years to figure out what your purpose is. The harvest is going to show you that that cultivation was worth it. It may take you 45 years to find someone that make you smile. It's okay. The harvest was worth it. The cultivation was worth it. Let's look at it from this perspective, right? The time that you are putting into what type of soil that you've planted your seeds in. Like, when you go, like even like when you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, there's different types of soil. So why do you have the expectations of doing the same thing and expecting the same type of harvest for all the different stuff that you have? Because you're going to have to appreciate in order to cultivate. Like, do you appreciate the lessons that you've learned? I do. I appreciate them. Hell, I appreciate all the whoopings I got coming up at the time. But a lot of it was because of me, the things that I was doing. Not to say that whoopings is good. I'm not saying that, but I appreciate the cultivation because I was mischievous. So I can look at that and identify that and say, you know what? Cool, it was me. Right? And the things that you appreciate will begin to cultivate, and it would allow you to develop. Your lessons that you learn is the cultivation and the development and the design and the redevelopment of the. Remember, the wildest of wildest gardens is what? Control. And within that garden, there's an incorporation of what? Both natural and artificial material. Your fears can't destroy your entire garden, because sometimes it may feel like it is, but your fears don't destroy the garden. It can only corrupt your thoughts. What does that mean? The fear can't destroy your entire garden. It can't. Your fears will not your entire garden, but it can corrupt how you think. It can corrupt how you take care of each particular fruit. It can corrupt how you feel like, man, this ain't growing. I quit. Like, it didn't destroy the garden. It destroyed how you thought. It corrupted how you thought. The garden was not destroyed by you, but the garden destroyed and it corrupted your thoughts. Because when you control your thoughts, like it said, the wildest feature identifying even the wildest of wild garden. So even in that moment that you felt like this harvest should have came, go ahead and breathe, woosah, whatever it is that you need to do, and say, you know what? Let me go get some more seed, and I'm gonna start this over. That don't mean that it didn't work. That mean that it's time to do something different. It's time to put in a different type of work. Maybe it was time for you to turn the topsoil over, but you didn't pay attention to it because fear set in, and fear became your distraction. And have overshadowed, see things that you didn't even see, that those weeds that was inside the garden began to constrict all the life out of everything that you did. So the fear didn't destroy the garden. It just corrupted how you thought. Into how you think, into your thoughts. And something that I want you to pay attention to, that every seed is made different. Like every goal is made different. Every purpose is made different. Every desire that you have is made different. Every seed is made different. Some don't need a lot of light, more water. Some doesn't need a lot of water. But all of them need to be tended to. All of them. That's just like when we say the dry bones in the valley. The dry bones in the valley were your visions that you had that you let die. So now it's time for you to pay attention to what's in your garden, because you didn't grow the snakes, did you? No, you don't plant snake seeds and the snakes grow into the garden and start to all the stuff that you have. You didn't grow the road around themselves in your garden. You didn't grow the locusts, but the locusts found themselves eating up the harvest in your garden. Those are the things that are artificially incorporated into your garden. But now, because it's artificially incorporated into your garden, now it's time for you to remove those things. Remove the rodents, remove the locusts, remove the snakes, remove the weeds. Prune your garden, tend to your garden. That you promote in your garden has no other option but to grow. So what's in your garden? That's the question. What's in your garden? Again, I talked about garden with my sister. She's on there, Latricia Myrick. So I ain't telling your story, but I'm telling the premise. So she was going through some rough patches in her life, and she called. I think I was stationed in Fort Campbell at the time, and we were talking, and I was like, you got to tend to your garden. And I don't know where tend to your garden came from, but I was like, you got to tend to your garden. You know, all this stuff that you have in your garden, a lot of it you allow to stay in your garden because you've never removed it. just like Queenie was talking about, when it comes to the weed that's in your garden, you don't grow those weeds, but yet they suffocate the life out of what you feel you should have. So your life is going to feel restricted. It's going to feel claustrophobic because you haven't begun to remove things from you. And I think since that moment, like when we talked about uh tending to her garden, she just began to look at herself like, okay, there's some things I'm going to remove, and there's some things I need to walk away from. There's some things in my garden that I know that I allowed to stay there just a little bit more. You ever looked at uh, uh, a garden to where the fruit came to harvest, but then you don't remove it? What happens? It decays. It will rot. It came to full bloom. It came to full term, but you didn't pay attention that like it's ready, but you don't go and pull that out of fear, and it stays there and it eats everything else up. Your garden is yours. I'm gonna tell you, like I told her, your garden is yours. You can't say you're ready for the harvest if you didn't put in the work. Well, you can, but it's not cultivated enough. Too many people want to reap the harvest, but they don't want to do the work that it takes to ensure that the harvest is bountiful. And because you didn't pay attention to the harvest during the time, every fruit that have came to fruition, that have came ripe, have begun to rot. So now you got to start over. There's nothing wrong with starting over as long as you start over. That doesn't mean you failed. That means you just need to tend to it a little bit more, right? You need to tend to it just a little bit more. It's okay, because those were those lessons. And what they say, lessons turn into blessings. Because it tastes a whole lot sweeter when you know you worked for it. You know you've put in the work. That's like grandma used to have those preserves, right? The apricots will fall. Like, remember my great grandmother in DC, she had an apricot tree. It was weird, right? You got a brownstone in the front, and in the back she got apricot trees. So she get the apricots, and when they fall, again, if you don't pick up the apricots when they're good, and then you make the preserve, what happens? They will rot. So there's in due time. So she'll take it and she'll make preserves. Have you preserved for you? What have you preserved for you? Now, I'm guilty too. A lot of times I preserve everybody else instead of myself. I give to everybody else instead of saving the sweet spot for myself. I have a sweet spot. You have a sweet spot. Not everybody needs to get your preserves. There are some preserves that you have to store, right? Until it's ready. All right, I'm done. All right. Yeah. What you talking about, Miss Queenie? She said, if you need to start over, attend to your garden differently than before. 1000%. Because that's cultivation. Because when you've cultivated your garden, you learn what the harvest looks like. You learn what you can begin to judge when the harvest is going to be. Just like when they say in due season, as you do it more times, you begin to say, all right, harvest should be coming up soon. It's just like when you're doing something for you, it's like, oh man, I feel good. I need to do more things for myself, because that's your due season. All right, that's enough. Hey, man, like always, I appreciate you guys for being here. It's Friday. I'll see y'all again on Monday at 7:30 a.m. here at Consistency is Currency, your morning podcast of choice. I appreciate y'all. Tend to your garden. If you don't remember anything I said today or anything I said all week, tend to your garden. Check your garden out. Identify what's in your garden. Prune the things that need to be pruned. And remember, if it does not promote growth, it gotta go. That's tending to your garden. If what's in your garden does not promote growth, then it has to go. If it's not promoting growth spiritually with you or emotionally with you or physically with you or psychologically with you or even from a business perspective with you, if it does not promote growth, it's not healthy enough to stay in your garden. The weeds don't promote growth. It's there to constrict and to suffocate the life out of what is there that is being planted to grow. And I'll say it again. Hey, y'all put this in the chat. If it doesn't promote growth, it has to go. Y'all can use that for the rest of the weekend. If it doesn't promote growth, it has to go. All right, man, I appreciate you and everything that you do and everything that you've done. Mr. R2 here at Consistency is Currency, your morning podcast of choice. Y'all be blessed and enjoy your weekend. I'll see you Monday. Peace.